Welcome to the Expert Speaker Podcast. We have entrepreneurial legend Scott Duffy, the man who sold his company to Richard Branson, the man who started media companies like FoxSports.com. I know Scott as an expert networker and creator of an amazing mastermind. And today we're talking about growing your business, artificial intelligence, raising capital, selling your company. Thank you so much for bringing all the wisdom today, Scott.
Well, thank you so much. I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for having me. We go back a ways. We've worked together on different companies and partnerships and things like that. And just to be clear, I was really fortunate to be part of amazing teams that helped to launch some really cool companies like FoxSports.com and others. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Well, I think the first time I ever saw you on video, you were doing burgers with entrepreneurs interviewing Steve Sims.
Yeah. That was fun though. So my co-host Alan Taylor and we had a video podcast. It was really kind of early in that video podcast, kind of like, space, called Business and Burgers. And we literally came up with the idea. We worked really closely with our friend Steve Fielding, who is at Microsoft in the small business group. And they were looking to develop some content for National Entrepreneurship Week. And that was something that was backed by Microsoft. And so Alan and I we recorded a bunch of interviews, and that series that we did for that week did really well. And Steve called us and he's like, hey, we want to do something we want to like build a show around you guys and interviewing like leaders around the country. If you did, like, what would you do? What would it be? And we were like literally at a burger place eating burgers, and we were on speakerphone. And Alan said, well, I like a good burger. And I said, I like to talk about business. And it was like that simple. We came up with this idea for Business and Burgers. And so we were a search for the best burger in America and a side of great business advice. And we traveled around and we interviewed all across the country some amazing entrepreneurs and innovators, guys like Daymond John and others. And we did that with Microsoft, and it was also sponsored by Entrepreneur Magazine.
That's so cool. So yeah, I'm thinking about how's that funded? So there's a sponsor who says we'll give you $100,000 to go do 50 episodes, something like that.
Yeah, so it was primarily backed by Microsoft, and then we had other sponsors that they helped us to bring on in also. So, some of their partners, whether it was Verizon or HP or Samsung, where we would go and we would promote their devices also. I think that like anything else, the most important thing when you're building any kind of show or any kind of product is to make sure that whoever it is that you want to hire you or you want to listen to you, that you really understand what is the problem that they're trying to solve, and what's most important to them, and what has to happen, or how do they know that they're getting a win, they're feeling a win. And I think that when you can get that information early and you build to that, that is what's going to help you to do something that's successful, not just for you, but for them as well. And so that's what we did, is we really understood what it was that Microsoft wanted to achieve and what Entrepreneur wanted to achieve. And we built to that, and it was a lot of fun when we did it.
Can you tell me, because I'm just thinking about pitching a show.
Yeah.
What was it that Microsoft is looking for? Are they looking for views? Are they looking for views on a certain audience? Or are they looking for content that they can repurpose?
Well, initially, when we were brought in to do something for National Entrepreneurship Week, it was all about creating awareness for this week that they were like kicking off and getting behind. So trying to make videos that got a fair amount of views and things like that. So awareness was the number one goal. And then I think from there, when we did Business and Burgers, it became more about thought leadership. And so again, that's why it's so important as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, that we have to get out of our head and stop selling, and we have to like get into solving problems for people. And so what was important to them might not be what's important now. And that's why the two most important questions that you're ever going to ask as a business leader are, number one, what is most important to you? What's most important to you? And then the second question is, what has to happen, or how do you know that you're getting what you want? And let me tell you why that's so important. Like, I remember I'm like, Majeed, like I'm in the gym all the time, right? Like I'm a total gym rat. And when COVID happened and the gym was closed, I couldn't do that. And a friend came over to my house and said, "Hey, I'm going to build an app for people just like you, people that were gym rats that are now home. And like, I'm gonna get them excited about working out at home." And I said, "Awesome." And he said, "So what would be most important to you about that app?" And my answer was simple. I said that it's easy to use. And he said, "Awesome." And he went away and he got in his head and he built something that he thought was easy to use. And he came over to my house and he said, "Test this out. What do you think? I want you to try it." And here's the problem. Easy to use means a million different things to a million different people. So first thing is he built something on an Android device, and I have an Apple phone. He built something that was a monthly subscription. I just want to use something one time. I don't know if I'm going to want to use it next month. So if he had asked me the second question, what has to happen, or how do you know it's easy to use? Then what would have happened is I would have said all those things and I would have given him what I call my buyer blueprint. And if he just built to that, he would have had a sale. And so whether you're selling a podcast or you're selling a partnership or you're selling a product, it's always those same two questions.
The two questions are, what's important to you and how would you know you got that thing?
Yeah, what's most important to you? And then what has to happen, or how do you know that you got that?
Got it.
Yeah.
You're so good at connecting people and finding the right person to talk to. So just to go on the same tactical, how could I get my burger show sponsored? If I said, all right, I want to find a sponsor, let's just say I want to find a sponsor at Microsoft.
Yeah.
How do you know who the right person to talk to is?
Well, I think that the first thing that you need to do is you've got to do your homework, right? And you have to figure out, if they do have a media department or they do have small business initiatives or whatever it is, like where are those things coming out of? So for example, if GoDaddy is an example, right? Another brand that caters to small businesses. If you went to GoDaddy and you took a look at some of their content that they're putting out for small business leaders, then what you'd want to do is find out who is responsible for that content, internally, or who was the person that was paying for that content. There's different ways you can do it. You can go on LinkedIn. You can reach out to your friends. What I recommend you do is this. What I recommend you do is, when it comes to, like, your question was sponsoring a podcast, I think of that as like, what is a great partnership? And if I'm asking myself, what is a great partnership, the questions I want to answer for myself are who has the exact same target customer I have, the exact same target customer with non-competing products. So there's not any overlap where 1 + 1 = 1,000. And that's the most important thing. So they're not competitive, but they're complementary products. And that's really where I start. What tends to happen when people are trying to sell a podcast or they're trying to sell any type of content to any kind of media company, and I've worked in 3, is that what they're doing is they're selling something without really understanding who that potential partner of theirs is trying to reach. And so they're selling something that actually appeals to a different target customer, right? So there's a mismatch from the very beginning. And it all stems from the fact that, they didn't ask what's most important and how you're getting what you want. The same thing happens with, you and I were talking about investors earlier, and we might switch to that later, but it's the same thing. When people are raising money, typically they're talking to all the wrong people, and that's where the disconnect is.
Let's go there. You've done what, 300 plus investor pitches in the last year or two, you were mentioning?
Yeah.
And
I have. Yeah.
you've raised millions and millions. So what have you learned, and what advice would you give to people who want to raise money?
Yeah. So I think that if you've been out trying to raise money since really May of 2022, and you're frustrated, you feel like you're not getting what you want, you feel like you just can't close a deal, or you feel that the terms are getting tougher and tougher and tougher, you're not alone. Last year, 2023, was the worst year to raise money in the United States in over 50 years. And there's a number of reasons why, without kind of like getting into those details and complicating it. But it really started in May of 2022 when they started to increase interest rates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there became a narrative in 2022 that 2023, because of the rise in interest rates, was going to like crash the economy, and we are going to go into this like crazy recession. And so that became the narrative with investors, and so they started to pull back. And then in March of 2023, we had a Silicon Valley Bank go out of business, and it created this whole ripple effect. And so what happened was, it created a ripple effect, which has created these issues. But I would say this, that if you want to raise capital, the biggest mistake that people make when raising capital is they talk to all of the wrong people. They're talking to all the wrong people, just kind of like what we were just talking about before. And here's what I mean. Investors are in the business of not only making money on their money, but also mitigating risk. So what they do is they invest in things that they know. They invest in things that they understand. That way they know when they're sent a deal how to really understand if it's a good deal. That way they know if they're sent a deal, if it goes sideways, that they might be able to step in and help out. So the moment you come into contact with a potential investor, here's the questions that you want to ask to make sure they are the perfect representation of your target investor avatar. And the first question is this: where do they make their money? If you pitch a real estate deal to a tech investor, there's a disconnect. Or a tech deal to a real estate investor, there's a disconnect. So where do they make their money? Number one. Number two, what stage business do they like to invest in? Do they like to come in at the idea stage? Do they want to come in at the product stage, at the revenue stage, or is there another criteria? The third thing is, what is the average size check that they like to write? So if you go and you ask somebody for $100,000 and they write a $10,000 check, you got a problem. There's a disconnect, and vice versa. So what size check do they write? The next question is, what is their expectation for return on investment? What's their expectation for return on investment? Do they want to see a 1-time, a 5-time, a 10-time, or if they're a venture capital firm, a 40-time return on their investment? Now, the reason this is so important is if their expectation is something that your business can't meet, you have a disconnect, right? The next question is, when do you want to get your money back? When do you expect to get your money back? Are you a short-term investor? You want it back in 1, 2, 3 years, or a long-term investor? You want it back in 10. And then finally, what is your decision-making process? How do you get to yes? Is it just you? Is it you and a partner? Is it you and a firm? What does that look like? So again, just really quick to review. You want to know where people made their money. You want to know what stage they come in at, what the average size check is, what their expectation is for return on investment, when they want their money back, and what their decision-making process is. Now, one more thing, Majeed. Last thing is this. How do you find this out? You ask. When you're on the phone with an investor for the first time, or you're on Zoom or whatever, you're in a meeting in person, ask them to start by sharing their background. And then just ask them, hey, before we dig deeper, I share with you mine. Can I just ask you a few questions about you kind of as an investor? You're going to come off as such a pro. First of all, you'll know right away if this is a person you need to spend time with or they're not qualified. And second, you'll come off as such a pro for saving their time. If they're not the right person, they will connect you to somebody that is.
I love that. I was not expecting this at all. I was expecting you got to tell the story and you got to have the pitch deck and you got to know your numbers. And I was coming from it from a perspective of how do we communicate the opportunity? And everything you told me about raising capital here is all about understanding the investor, their desires.
Yeah.
Really good. Really good. Yeah, I wrote it down. Fantastic. How'd you make your money? Give me your background. Tell me your story. What stage of a company do you like to invest in? What size check do you like to write? What kind of ROI are you looking for? What's your timeline on getting your money back? And what's your decision process? And who else needs to be involved?
Yeah.
Really good. Really good. All right. You are a connector. You are
Mm,
connected. You're the guy I call when I want to find someone. I have no idea how I'm going to find them. You're like the first
yeah,
guy I want to ask. And
yeah,
that's because I went out to your mastermind in Utah,
yeah,
and I'm used to going to masterminds where a lot of the people are in the same industry, kind of at the same level.
yeah.
And what I loved about this one is there was the multimillionaire real estate mogul, there was the young couple just starting up their business, and I learned from everybody. And
Yeah.
I learned from everybody because of the structures of connections that
Mm,
you put in place,
mm,
the way you do hot seats, the
mhm.
way you provide space, a lot of space actually, to just naturally connect, and a lot of facilitated, guided connection. And I'm still friends with people from that event years later. So I really, really,
Awesome.
really appreciate.
That's awesome.
And I know what it takes. I know what it takes to
Mhm.
put on an event like that. And you've got a great team.
Yeah.
And you're doing something soon with AI,
Yes.
the
Yes.
AI Mavericks.
Yes.
So what an exciting time to be alive.
Yes. It sure
Oh
is.
my goodness.
It sure
So
is.
what inspired you to focus your masterminding efforts on AI, and what can the people expect from this mastermind?
Well, we talking earlier about how I talk to a lot of people in the capital communities in the VCs and the PE firms and things like that. And last year, one of the things that people kept asking me in those communities was like, hey, can you work with my CEOs? Can you work with my founders, my CEOs, my leadership teams? Can you do that and like help them to understand how to implement AI into their business? And here's the idea, right? So with AI Mavericks, what we're doing is we're building the number one AI and business growth community on the planet, bar none. And we target, as a result of these conversations, our customers are founders, CEOs, and leadership teams, and they want to build great companies. They are building great companies. They have made great companies, but they want to learn how to implement AI as an important part of their business strategy. But here's the thing, like 99% of the people out there, and if you're feeling like this, you're watching, you're not alone, they're stuck somewhere between the fear of missing out and the fear of jumping in. Like they don't know where to start. They feel like everybody else has got it figured out. They're the kind of people that are on their toes. Like last year, they signed up for every single AI newsletter out there. And today, the first thing they do when they open their email is delete all of them because they're so
Mhm.
overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And so what we do is we just demystify everything. We simplify everything. We share with you what you need to know now so you don't have to pay attention to the rest of the noise. And you walk out with an AI vision. We have a framework and some workshopping, an AI vision for your company, a strategy and execution plan. What we also will teach you how to do is communicate all of that to your board and your investors and your leadership teams. So this isn't what I do, isn't at 50,000 feet. I have no interest in sharing with you, the future of AI and what the world's going to look like in 50 years. What I want to help you to do is how to understand, like how to use it in the simplest way possible to create efficiency in your business and improve your margins today. That's all we want to do. And it doesn't mean we have to do everything. Let's start with one simple thing, nail it, and move to the next.
So this is not a course, it's not a training program. It's a network of people. It's a mastermind, yeah?
It is. It is. So it's a group of people. So we keep for this mastermind, it's 100 people. So it's a small group of people. And the reason we do it this way is because we want to be able to roll up our sleeves and jump in and help. So we get together 3 times a year. We have an opening dinner, and then we have 2 full days, amazing speakers, case studies, workshopping, crazy 5-star networking. But then what we do is we also get together once a month and we invite your teams. So I feel like the only way for all of us to really leverage all of this stuff right now is we got to train everyone in the organization that's thinking about this. So as a member, you come live, but every month we pick a different department in your company. So say, for example, it's sales. Say this month is sales. we share with you through our partners at Cave Minds, we share with you the top tools that companies are using, AI tools, in their sales departments. And here's our experiences working with those tools. Here's what it was like to implement them and install them and get everybody trained on them. And then we do Q&A. And then the next month, we pick a different department in your company. So we're doing the work for you of understanding what to pay attention to, what tools to use, and we're sharing our experiences is what we do.
Scott,
And we
go
invite
ahead.
your teams so you can bring your teams onto all those calls. So if your sales leadership is thinking about AI this month, bring them on. If your finance department is thinking about it next month, bring them on.
Great. Great. What are some of the ways you've personally implemented AI?
So I think the simplest way to kind of answer that question is just like how I used AI to start this AI event company in this AI event series.
Yeah.
My framework is really simple. I look at every department in my company and I ask myself, what is one problem that I want to solve? And I actually, the way I think about it is in three ways in my head. So in each department, what's one problem that I want to solve to either reduce headcount, increase efficiency, or improve my profit margins? So can I streamline my operations so fewer people are able to do more?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can I reduce headcount? Can I create efficiency? How would I improve my profit margins? And so I go through each department and I pick one problem where I'm solving one of those things, right? One of those three things. And then all I do is I look for a tool that can help me, an AI tool that might be able to help me to do that in that particular area, solve that one problem in that one department. And by the way, I just start with one department, right? See, I think the biggest mistake that most entrepreneurs make is they focus on too many things, right? Doing too many things at once. You've heard me talk about this. I call this hammers and nails. So the idea is if you're an entrepreneur, right, and you have one hammer and one nail, and your job's really simple, all you got to do is bring the hammer back and like drive that nail into a piece of wood, like just nail one business. The odds are eventually you're going to nail it. I give you two hammers and two nails, you got a problem, right? Who's going to hold the nails? If you find somebody crazy enough to do it, just think about it. You got to hold a hammer in each hand, bring it, you got to strike at the same time. And you may miss the first or second, third, you may never get it right. I give you 10 hammers and 10 nails, you get the point. So the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make is they focus on too many things. What I say with AI is this: don't focus on everything, focus on one thing, really nail it, then move on to the next. So in my process, Majeed, basically what I did is I brought all the departments, what's one problem I want to solve in each, and then I just went one at a time, right? So for example, with the name AI Mavericks, I actually came up with that because I was brainstorming the idea and I was watching Top Gun Maverick with my oldest daughter on my couch. And after we had been talking about this idea, and she's like, Dad, I think you should do it. And so we went on to ChatGPT. And I literally typed in, I just watched Top Gun Maverick with my daughter, Lily, and stuff like that. And AI Mavericks was one of the first names that came up as a name for the event.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to understand more about the persona of who would actually attend this and what they really wanted. So I called my friend Jerry and I said, Jerry, I've got this one problem. And the problem is I want to understand this. Can you help me with this? And he built a persona in ChatGPT, and boom, all of a sudden I got an entire profile of who the target customer was. I got a profile of what they wanted to learn, how they wanted to learn it. So good, I'm doing research. The next thing I did is I said that I wanted to streamline my sales and my marketing. I wanted to automate it. And so I called another friend, Ben, and I said, have you solved this problem using AI? And so we worked together, and that's the next problem in sales. So like one of the biggest, just time-consuming things I did with my previous mastermind is before people went, I would record a personal video to them with their name and the same message and send it to them. After the event, I would record a personal message with their name, pretty much the same content as the one before, and I had to send it to them. So imagine doing this 100 times before the
Yeah.
event and
Yeah.
100 after. So I called a friend of mine, Jeff, and he said, Jeff, I said, I've got to solve this problem. Do you understand how to, is there an AI tool that can solve this problem? And he said, yes. And so we tested. And so now all I have to do is upload a picture of myself, type in some text, give a voice sample, type in all of the names of the people that are attending, hit a button. In 5 seconds, I have a personalized message for every single person. I hit one button and it gets sent out.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I just solved that problem. So my point is this, and I could go on and on. My point is this, it's that leveraging AI today as a business owner is all about solving problems. And in the same way, in 1994, when I got into consumer internet, in the same way that the internet became just about solving a problem, AI is just about solving a problem. That's all it is. So, and start with one thing. And if you're having trouble figuring out what that one thing is, we got you. We got you. And that's
Yeah.
what we.
Yeah. I met Jeff at your mastermind, and I have made similar calls to Jeff. Um, I am really happy about what just happened in my business. So I've been on back-to-back Zoom calls for I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
And first it was record to your computer. Then I had to put it into a Google Drive to share it with people. Then they came out with the cloud recording. Then they had this automatic transcription. I'm paying $3,000 a year for this Zoom transcription. I just found out a few days ago that
Yeah.
there is a free tool called Fathom.
Yep.
It does a better job than my $3,000 Zoom. So I made a voice note to my assistant and I said, hey, can you cancel our Zoom package and just go down to the basic because we've got this Fathom thing. She sends me a message 20 minutes later. It's done. We're saving $3,000 a year now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to do a full stack audit of all of my probably outdated software. And there's so much I don't even know I don't know. It's very exciting.
What's really interesting about that story is the tool that you bought from Zoom was probably best in class at the time.
Yeah.
And now it's been disrupted. And I can tell you that
Yeah.
there are tools out there now that leverage AI where it will take the entire Zoom meeting, and what it will do is in a very short period of time, it will summarize the meeting. It will put all the action items up at the top for you. And then it will
Yes.
give the transcription, but it
Yes.
will also understand the emotion. And so it will know, for example, if a person got heated at this particular point, or it will know if a person was, and so you really have a great reflection of what's there. And it just like I geek out on this stuff, but it just like speaks to the pace of change that we're all going to experience with AI. So for perspective, when I was up in the Bay Area, there was something that was called like a thing that we used to say, it's called Moore's Law. And so for kind of non-tech people, effectively what that meant was the number of transistors, or like basically think about it as computing power, would double, right? Would double every 2 years, 18 months, 2 months. So think of it just really simplistically as the computing power would double every 2 years. For perspective, NVIDIA's chip, and by the way, that held true for the next 20 years. Okay. And if you took it a step further, the power doubled every 2 years and the cost dropped in half every 2 years. So things became better, faster, and cheaper. Okay. And just think about your computers and your laptops, and it all makes sense. With AI and their new chip, the latest one that's been announced by NVIDIA, they've been able to increase that rate of speed, that rate of change in the last handful of years to 1,000%. We're not
Jeez.
just doubling, we're increasing at 1,000% intervals. So, the pace of change used to be linear, was really slow, and then came the internet and it became exponential. And now comes AI and it's going to become incomprehensible. You hear that as a founder or as a CEO, and you're like, I'm just overwhelmed enough trying to pay my payroll right now.
Yeah.
How am I going to deal with this?
Yeah.
And the way is simply, it's let's just find one problem in your business that you want to solve, and let's use AI to solve that one problem.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of people out there that now specialize in helping to connect the right tool to the problem that you're trying to solve. And what's magical is you don't need to build a big engineering department to do it. You don't need to spend millions of dollars. You can subscribe to a tool through the internet that can probably solve most of the problems that you have today.
So, Scott, leadership must have changed. The
Mm-hmm.
way we plan and grow a business has changed because
Yeah.
there used to be a time where we would write feasibility studies and we would
Yeah.
write business plans and we would make plans for 12 months.
Yeah.
And now, with things changing so quickly, that doesn't make as much sense. So, one of the mindsets you just mentioned is keep it simple, solve one thing.
Yeah.
What are some of the other mindset shifts you're observing on what it takes to grow a business in today's fast changing world?
Yeah. I think that because of the pace of change, the most important skills that you can have in life moving forward are flexibility and adaptability. Flexibility and adaptability. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
Because we talked about this. I'm a huge NBA fan, huge NBA fan. And a few years ago, I had a chance to work with not work with, but do something with the Lakers and Phil Jackson. And for people that don't know, Phil Jackson is the winningest professional coach in U.S. history. He's won 11 championships in the NBA, and he was the only person to coach Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant in the regular season and won 11 championships with them. And so the question for me was like obvious, like, what is it? What is the difference that makes the difference between the best at anything and everyone else, between Michael, Kobe, and everyone else? Immediately, the answer was simple. It was Shoshin, Shoshin, Shoshin. And Shoshin in Buddhism is a word that means beginner's mind. And what he explained was every single day, the way they approach this, every single day when Michael and Kobe stepped on the court, it was like the first time they'd ever played the game. They were so open to learning that they were able to see and make small distinctions that nobody else could make. And that was the difference that made the difference between 11 titles and zero, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's the same for all of us as business leaders, is that we have to approach each day with openness. Like it's the first time that we ever played this game in business. And we have to be flexible and we have to be adaptable. Now, one thing I will say is there's so much noise out there as it relates to AI. You think everyone's doing it. I've got to be paying attention to this. I have to understand that. No. All you have to understand today as a business owner is what's one business problem I want to solve and what's one tool out there that can do it. That's it.
The
With
last
AI
part?
Mavericks, our whole thing is getting you there to
Got it.
that
Got it. Got
place. Yeah.
it. So, beginner's mind.
Yeah.
So, the opposite of beginner's mind is like, I already know everything. There's nothing new to learn.
Well, it's
Uh,
it's the opposite, Majeed, is I have a plan, and it's a 3-year
mm,
plan. Is the Navy SEALs, done a lot of work with Navy SEALs, is the Navy SEALs will tell you no plan survives first contact, right? It, it's
yeah.
it's it's I have a plan. That's great that you have a vision for where you want to go in a direction. But you also need to
Yeah.
check in on a fairly regular basis to make sure that even makes sense. I'm here to tell you, with the pace of change, whatever it was that you did 5 years ago, your superhero power as a business and as a leader, to whatever that is, 5 years ago, your superhero power is your baggage today.
Oh, interesting.
That is why we have to be flexible and adaptable.
Well,
That
I
is
have
why
a lot
our
of
plan is
baggage then. I have a lot of baggage because you know me, I got a lot of superpowers. Scott, you started a high-tech company recently, and I invested in it
yeah,
recently, I guess a few years ago. It was
yeah,
called Academy Builders,
yeah,
and now it's called Chorus.
yes.
Tell us about Chorus and how it's evolved and where it's headed.
Yeah, so that was a company that we actually started coming out about a year out of of COVID. And, I'm fascinated by just the education landscape and the future of education. One of the things that I believe is that over the next 10 years, that the education system, and that's a whole other podcast, is totally broken, right?
Mm.
And for me,
Yeah.
Majeed, you and I have talked about this. Like, I grew up in a generation or at a time where we were taught that there was a single path to success, which was going to a good school, to go to a good school, to go to a good
Yes.
college so you could get a good job.
Yes.
And that model is totally broken today for
Hmm.
most people. For most people, the cost in the United States of tuition has increased 2,000% over inflation. For perspective, the next highest increase is healthcare, and only 600%.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And so what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of companies step in and they take the role as primary educator for people going forward. What most companies are going to be interested in is that you have a recent skill set or certification in a constantly changing world, and they'll teach it to you and they'll do it for free. Instead of going to Stanford for 4 years, you can go to Google Academy for engineering, right? You want to be a video game developer, instead of going to UCLA, you go to Activision Academy for video game development. So you and I, Majeed, with Academy Builders, we were building those schools for big companies. And what made us really unique was we had this market research product that we developed that helped us to understand what learners wanted. And what we did is we decided, through some great feedback from investors, to expand that vision. So instead of what learners wanted, we wanted to build this tool so it was what people wanted, right? Just what is it that the market wants? And so Chorus became the new name of our company. We have a general market research tool, and we provide real-time market research and actionable insights for small businesses. And they can
Mm.
use this to help develop products, understand what their customers thinking, understand sentiment, brand loyalty, all of those types of things. What you used to spend $1 million a year on with McKinsey, you spend $100 a month on today with Chorus.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, that's an interesting shift we're living through, is the shift away from the university as the place where the skills are developed. And I
Yeah,
I know that my a lot of my family members are university professors. I know what a tenured university
yeah,
professor
yeah,
is, and I know how long it takes to get cutting edge content into a university course. It can take
yeah,
years. It can
yeah,
take years to get content into a course. And my understanding of the history of like universities is that the big companies, they wanted educated people and they didn't want to pay for it.
mm,
So they got the students to pay for their universities. But now what I'm hearing from you is the technology exists where the company can provide it at scale at no cost. The ones you were giving examples of, Google
yeah.
and Activision, those are kind of free schools for students to skill up to get ready for those jobs. Is that what you're saying?
They're either free or they're at a very low cost. And for a company, if they, so look, think about it this way. Years ago, like, I'm an old guy, years ago. So once we were told at one point that we all had to have our own personal website. Now,
Yes.
for younger people out there, like you're like, yeah, everyone's got a website. No, they didn't. There was no such thing as WordPress. There was no easy way to do it. You had to be a coder. You had to know like C++ or like whatever it was like back then. So then came WordPress. And everyone had to have a website to start to market themselves. And then social media came and everyone had to be a media company, right? And now what I'm telling you is coming next is everyone is in the education business. And as a brand, what this does is providing quality education brings people closer to you. Like, somebody's gonna, if I went to a company's certification program and that program was affordable, it was accessible, and it led directly to a job for me or higher income, I would have incredible brand loyalty. And the company would be building its own workforce potentially, right? Because they're going to teach something that's important to their thing. So for companies, it's a great thing. And for customers, online changes everything. Look, I believe that if you take a look at the next 10 years, the biggest online company in the world, okay, the biggest online company in the world is not going to be Amazon. It's not going to be Google. It's not going to be Facebook. It's not going to be OpenAI. The biggest online company in the world will be an education company, and nobody's heard of it yet. I believe over the next 10 years that technology will become the teacher and teachers will become coaches. I believe that what will happen is with education is education will become totally adaptable to who's learning. It will be one-to-one. It will understand your primary learning modalities, whether to speed up or to slow down, all of that stuff. And I believe education, in part because of AI, will become totally immersive. So if you want to learn about the Grand Canyon, you'll put something on and you'll actually be in the Grand Canyon. So it's incredibly, incredibly exciting, I think, what's coming, because it lowers the barrier to entry and it levels the playing field. And you wind up in a place where instead of leaving college $200,000 in debt, you have no debt and you have a great job.
Yeah. What an exciting time to be alive.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see you at the Mavericks, the AI Mavericks Mastermind event. Thank you. We've covered so much today. We've covered about media, raising capital, AI, masterminding. There is one last thing I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
As a guy who's been involved in several successful exits.
Yeah.
How do you sell a company for millions of dollars? What do you need to do to prepare your company for sale? Anything you've learned that you'd like to share for entrepreneurs who would like to sell one day?
Well, so it's a big question. I'll break my answer into a couple of parts. So the thing is people buy great companies, right? They first of all, people sell companies. You always have to start your business with an exit plan in mind, right? You need like an escape hatch. Even if you're thinking, I never want to sell this thing. People sell businesses for all kinds of reasons, right? They want to cash out. There's an illness in the family. They have to move. Like there's all kinds of reasons that a person is gonna sell. And so you always want to plan your business so it's the most sellable and it's the most valuable, right? How do you create the most value for your company? If you can, you go to a subscription type of business. I can help you to increase the value of your company in 5 minutes. I can help you increase it 5 times. And here's how we do it. Before, I work with a lot of people that are selling their businesses, and they ask me to help them to like figure all that out. And so the first thing I do is I do an independent valuation of the company. I take it to a bank and they run some stuff and they tell us what they believe it's worth. If your sales are one-time sales, and let's say you're doing $1 million in one-time sales, the bank is going to value your company at $1 million. Okay. One time your sale, because you have to start over, do it again. If you're selling a subscription product, then the bank will value that million at 5 times that $1 million. So now you have a business worth $5 million. So the fastest way to increase the value of your business is to convert as much as you can from one-time sales to subscription sales. Make sense?
Yeah.
The other thing that you want to do is you want to make sure your business is set up to be as acquirable by someone in your industry as possible. You want to make it easy.
Yeah.
So what I always do at the beginning is I try and find out, for example, simple things like how do bigger companies in my space set up their books? What does the accounting look like? What are the key metrics that they follow? From the very beginning, day one. And then I set my stuff up in the exact same way. And that's what I have my clients do too. And so from the very beginning, we're looking at our business in the same way that a potential acquirer would be looking at our business. And what we're doing is figuring out how we can create a business with as much subscription versus one-time revenue as possible to increase our valuation. And then the last thing I do is I build relationships with people who are potential acquirers. And I find them at conferences, I find them in organizations, I find them all kinds of places. All I do is build a relationship. What I've learned is companies, the best acquisitions, they're bought, they're not sold. The relationship is already in place well before the company is ever purchased. And so Those are the three things I recommend. Set your books up to meet the market, go for as much subscription as one-time sales as possible, and build relationships, recognizing that over time, companies are bought, they're not sold.
Amazing. Scott Duffy, thank you so much.
Can we give a
Go
shout
ahead.
out to AI Mavericks?
Of course.
If you want to learn more information, www.aimavericks.ai, aimavericks.ai.
Fantastic. And you're on social media where, Scott?
At Scott Duffy Media everywhere.
Scott Duffy Media, serial entrepreneur, one of the world's most connected men, connecting the leaders in AI and business owners who just want to figure out what's the one thing that they can apply, the one tool to fix right now.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping us learn how to raise capital, how to sell the company. Appreciate your time, Scott. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thanks, brother.
Thank you for listening to the Expert Speaker Podcast. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating so that more people can discover the Expert Speaker Podcast and so more people can be empowered to share their message. Be sure to go to www.expertspeaker.com and take the masterclass to learn how to grow your business and make money speaking. It's totally free and will change your business. If you're ready to work with Expert Speaker, you can apply. Just go to expertspeaker.com/apply and someone from our team will be in touch with you to help you grow your business with public speaking. That's expertspeaker.com/apply. We'll see you in the next episode.